Hey, good morning. Well, it's morning for me. This is day 5 of the Truth Files, and it's just a couple days after, not even 2 full days after I recorded the last episode, but I wanted to drop in. I was going to record it yesterday morning, right after this happened, because it was just too good. But, life. So this is a little bit of a bow or a button on the loop that I opened up in episode 4. So I had talked about, feeling like I wasn't having fantastic experiences in terms of being received as a foreigner and or a tourist and those kinds of things. And this concept of life as oracle and about how everything around you is a projection of something that's going on the inside so that you have the opportunity to see this mirror and to shift and transmute whatever that is. And so, what I want to say is one of the key components of this, of this process and doing this process well, I'm totally noticing my background and having laundry all over the place. So, ignore that. But one of the key components of this whole thing is authentic emotional experience. And it was reported recently that the highest vibration, the highest frequency is not actually love. And so I don't remember the name for this. This is, kind of how my brain works, details. But there is this concept of frequency measured through hertz, emotions frequency measured through hertz. And it was at one time believed that love, unconditional love, is the highest frequency, the most positive frequency in the world. And it's been recently discovered. And again, I'm going to be paraphrasing this because I remember reading it. And it was discovered through uh, sort of like a video analysis of participants watching people expressing certain emotions, and they would measure their response to these emotions. So it was like a mirror frequency. And so, of course, love experience, like mirroring a frequency of love and unconditional love, that was a very high measurement. But then there were these anomalies, and they couldn't connect these anomalies, these spikes in frequency readings to any specific emotion. And it wasn't necessarily love that was being expressed. And so this was very puzzling to the researchers until they found out the correlation was that it was the only thing tying them all together was that they were all an authentic expression in the moment. It was pure expression, pure experience. And so this really dovetails into one of the principles that I've worked with and I teach my clients is that all of our emotions are indicators. They're just a dashboard. And it's this bypassing of emotions that is the problem. Because if the emotion is giving you a signal, just like a dashboard light on your car is giving you a signal and you ignore it, that's the equivalent of ignoring a check engine light or a low fuel light or whatever it is, because it's not spiritual enough and it's not, you're not thinking positively enough to manifest your way to a full fuel tank and um, an efficiently running engine. I need to mute myself to clear my throat. Excuse me. Pardon me. I don't usually record this early in the morning. So we don't want to ignore the signs and the signals. Now, if we look at this through the perspective of human design, the not self signature is or are emotions that we experience as not comfortable. So every major type, every major energy type in human design has a signature not self frequency, which all that means is that you're not actually in alignment with how you are designed to work, which is why you are experiencing discomfort and pain. And so when you are in alignment, you experience the positive frequency of your type. And so these are very broad descriptions and from one end of the spectrum to the other. For example, because generators are the majority of the planet, 70% of the planet, split about half and half into manifesting generators, which I am, and then classic generators. The baseline not self frequency is frustration. So frustration can take on a myriad of forms. There can be mild frustration, annoyance, irritation, all the way down to rage, right? And so quite often rage can be what is actually behind certain emotions. So frustration can encompass a whole lot of things, but it is when we understand how to work with it, it's not, oh, I'm being a bad person. I should be more tolerant and understanding. And what I really need to do is be more accepting, like all of those kinds of things. When we understand how to use frustration, give me one moment. When we understand how to use the signal of frustration properly, and we don't bypass it, and we let ourselves feel it fully and take ourselves through a little bit of a process to acknowledge it and to understand what the antidote or the solution would be to this frustration, then we actually have the opportunity to make the shift. It's not just about this camera, it's not just about eating shit all the time. It's not just about when somebody hands you a shit sandwich, do you like, you don't have to take it. But it's not always about making somebody else change. It can absolutely be how you respond to the situation, what situations you put yourself in, what your standards and boundaries are. Like it always points back to how you are operating and the field of consciousness, the electromagnetic field that you are broadcasting that makes these experiences possible. And so these signs and indications of frustration generally for manifestors are key. Like we really have to make friends with our anger and understand how to work with it rather than just blasting it out, right? Because not knowing what to do with it or doing it in an unintegrated way means then we're angry at something and demanding something changes and we blast it all over the place. That's called projection. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that we're never asking for a change, but it comes from an authentic expression of our experience rather than projecting the anger or the emotion as a tool or as a weapon. So there's a big difference between I am extremely angry because this, and this versus blah, 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 if you didn't, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So that's a very different way of utilizing the same emotion. So the preface to this is all around what I was experiencing the other day, and that's why I was expressing it and experiencing it, not because I believe that fundamentally Costa Ricans are a particular way or this area is a particular way. Whatever it is, whatever was occurring is that this place, this environment that I placed myself in, was the perfect environment to be the mirror for some things that I got to look at and transmute in preparation for the rest of this year, probably the rest of my life. And so, in being authentic and acknowledging how I was feeling, declaring what type of experience that I wanted to have. So, if this was a contrasting experience or how I was shown there was a hole in my net of manifestation, how I get to stitch that hole up or patch that hole up. It's just data, it's information, but I didn't make myself wrong for feeling all of these things. It was all data and reflections that help me see and understand aspects of myself and my psyche that are not going to be helpful for me going ahead. And this is the only way that I get to see them and understand them. And then when we do that, when we go directly into, remember I was talking about portals and timelines and that kind of thing. So when we go directly into the discomfort, this portal that's being presented to us this, just like in a video game, you can ascend a couple of levels really quickly when you go into the portal. When you go into that portal that's uncomfortable, fearful, whatever it is, that's how you access expansion on the other side. So when we do this, when we're willing to be in the discomfort and go through it's like a wormhole. And in what was that show with Jodie Foster? It wasn't called Gravity. Shoot, I can't. I think it was a simple name, but it was Jodie Foster, and she was in she was an astronaut, and she gets dropped into this vessel that looks like it just falls through this spinning mechanism and goes nowhere, but she experiences going through this wormhole that's like and she's being distorted and things are weird and it's uncomfortable and she's holding on for dear life and it feels like it's never going to end, and then poof, she comes out of the wormhole. So that's what these portals are like. You'll go into them and it's not instantaneous. Sometimes it's a 6-month portal of discomfort. Sometimes it's longer than that. And sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. Regardless, you go into the portal, you experience the discomfort, and then you pop out of the portal on the other side, which is how I connected, to the medicine journey of like when you go in, you have the waves cresting and falling, right? Of like, oh, this is so uncomfortable, and then bliss, and oh, so uncomfortable, and bliss. Same thing with this. So going into this portal of discomfort, experiencing it, understanding it, not shaming it, not blaming not shaming yourself, not blaming anybody else, and working with it, putting it through your throat center. And that's a big part of what I'm doing here too, is putting something through your throat chakra, through your throat center, is the first step to third dimensional creation. So speaking your creations out loud is huge for shifting your physical environment. It's huge. And so I did all of that with the last video. And the very next morning, and I'm going to just have a quick little pause here. I'll be right back. Okay, I just needed to pause for a second. I had something coming in I wanted to attend to. So, as I was saying, the very next morning, so I recorded that video in the evening. The very next morning, I woke up, took a few minutes to kind of orient myself, and then I was going to go downstairs to start making my breakfast. And so the place that I'm staying is, how would you say it? Like a shared common living area. So there are 3 or 4 suites, and then it's a shared kitchen and living space. It's been mostly empty. It's been mostly just me, but then on the weekends there have sometimes been some other guests. So one of the other guests was a single guy. He's kind of a big guy, a little bit gruff looking. And he was one of the ones the other day that seemed to have like a very distinct shift in his behavior towards me when he realized I didn't speak Spanish. And so it felt quite awkward to me. And so as I, worked through some of these things and decided how I would act, and that this is an opportunity for me to hold my frequency and who I am, regardless of the environment and responses and reactions, I had already decided that I would simply continue like to remain open and friendly and so on, and just let the chips fall where they may, right? So anyways, I come down the stairs and I'm standing at the sink, and I can see him come out of his room. And so I looked at him and I smiled. And then he was proceeding into the kitchen. So he was coming closer and I said, Hola. And he said, Hola. And then I had turned away and I was working at the island, putting my breakfast together. And he came in behind, like right where I was standing. So we're kind of like back to back, and he's at the sink. And then he says, like very intentionally and deliberately, like, good morning. I was like, oh, good morning. So because I was quite delighted that he had made the attempt, right? So he clearly understood that I only spoke English, or primarily spoke English, and he was making this attempt. And so it was really lovely. So that I thought, even that alone, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Went on and continued to make my breakfast. And then I'm trying to think if I went to eat my breakfast and then came back. Regardless, it was a little while later. I think I'd finished my breakfast and I was standing at the sink and I was cleaning my dishes. And he came out of his room again. And I thought he was talking on his phone because I'd heard him on his phone, quite a few times. I thought he was talking on his phone, but he continues to come towards me. And I thought I heard him say, like, excuse me, or some version of that. And he was holding his phone out to me. And so I was like, oh, so and the exact same move I'd been pulling with cashiers all week is that, on translate apps, and I've since downloaded Google Translate, so it's a little faster than this, but you can just type in, like if you go English to Spanish or whatever, you just type in what you need and then it'll instantly translate, and then you can show the person their language what you're intending. So he holds this up to me. And so I look and there's an English sentence there and it says, I'm going on a trip today and I have some food, some eggs that will, and it said break. And I think it was probably translated from spoil. If I take them with me, would you like them? And I thought, oh, how sweet is that? And I said, yes, yes, please, or sí, gracias, uh, or por favor. And so I was thinking he was going to come out with like a couple of eggs because the other couple that had been in there, I'd seen them cooking, and she came out of her room with a little Tupperware of exactly the number of eggs they were going to be using that day. And so I'm thinking he's going to bring me two eggs or something like this. He comes out with a carton, like a flat, a full flat of eggs, and they come in these flats. There's three rows. It's like 15 or 18 eggs. Whatever it was one of these big ones that just had a few eggs, and he's like, here. So I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. So we had like a really lovely moment. And so there's a couple more things with this is that and I had a similar flat already in the fridge. And so the number of eggs that he gave me was exactly the number of eggs I had already used. So it completely replenished my entire flat of eggs to the exact number. So I thought that was really interesting and had this really lovely spontaneous gift come from the masculine too, which if you recall from the last video, I had talked about moving through some financial stuff around masculine provision. And this doesn't mean I don't want to make this sound like men providing for women. Like this is truly an energetic dynamic within ourselves. There's a masculine and a feminine provision and receiving. And first and foremost, we need to harmonize, unite those energies before we'll see that on the outside. And then sometimes there are symbolic, come back. Sometimes there are symbolic externalizations of this where a typically masculine embodied being, typically men, will in their truest essence really their function really is provision. And the truest essence of the feminine, most often women, the truest essence is in receiving. And again, we've got these energies in different levels and measures within all of us. And so the first and foremost, it's about harmonizing those within ourselves, and then we'll see it manifest in the outside world. And so to have this in less than 12 hours turnaround of a display of not only initiation, attempting to speak my language, attempting to make a connection and a gift. And one of the things that Joe Dispenza says is to ask for something, ask for a sign that is unmistakable, that you can't slough off. And then so for me, that was the piece of the eggs being in the exact amount. Like you can't make this stuff up, right? And also symbolically, eggs are creativity and fertility and abundance and all of those things. So truly, there couldn't have been a more specific message from the field about the integration that I had just willingly gone through, from the portal that I had just willingly gone through the night before. So I wanted to share all of that while it was still active and alive in me so that it could be a living display of these principles and how quickly we get to the other side of these discomforts when we're willing to go into them. And so that's really where these discomforts start to be exciting. about, oh, cool, I've got new raw material that I get to work with to create my next level. So the discomfort comes up. And so it's like, oh, cool, I get to go right into this. And so that's a lot of what I've been doing is not brushing things off, not trying to be tough about them, but really paying attention to the pieces of discomfort that are coming up in me and working with them immediately, speaking them out, speaking them to people that I love and trust, and so that I'm in the practice of putting it through my throat center. When I use certain AIs that help me work through some of these things, that's putting it through the throat center as well, because you can speak, you can dictate it right into the app. And so moving these things through up and out of the body somatically is really, I mean, this is the work of creation. This is how the third dimensional plane works. And so when you understand these principles, just like you understand gravity, right? There are certain things you can and can't do because of gravity. And if you want to have a harmonious experience of life, you learn to work well with gravity. Same thing with these things. They are simply metaphysical realities. It's the construct of this third dimensional world. And when we understand how to work with them, with these principles, it makes navigating things much easier and much more pleasant. So that was just a really fun little confirmation of some of the things that were coming up for me. And there's been some really great conversations on the back end of that too. And some things that some new desires that this trip, this initiation process is helping me clarify. So really having this extended period of time by myself to really feel my own rhythms, to watch and observe what's coming up specifically for me, not connected to family, friends, community, whatever, but specifically to me is really helpful. It's really helping me hone and refine who I am and how I move through the world. And it's really helping me get very clear on some desires too for this next phase and stage of my life. So lots of discomfort for sure, for sure, lots of discomfort, but also a lot of gold, a lot of clarity that is coming as a result of it. So that's where I'm at as of today, which would be day 16. What's my math like? I left on the 12th. Yeah, day 16 of my journey. So 2 days after the last video and episode 5 of the Truth Files. So there we have it. That's what's happening for me today. And I hope wherever you are in the world that you are moving through your day with grace and eagerness and excitement for the raw materials that are being dropped into your lap for expansion and abundance. So until next time, ta ta.